Well, this is Howard James talking to Deb Maddigan from her home office somewhere in the heart of Newcastle. And Deb is a HR professional who has been managing the HR requirements for a large international company from that home office in Newcastle for a number of years now. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you very much.
I thought what we'd do today is just have a bit of a chat and look at the tips and the traps of working from home. I know a lot of people hate working from home because of kids and dogs and lawnmower men. I understand your lawnmower man is due to arrive at any time, so we may have to contend with him. Also, some people just find it so socially isolating. Being an only child, I'm very happy in my own company, so I really enjoyed working from home, and I found it great. But a lot of people find it just virtually almost impossible to do. Distractions with the laundry, or just go and make another cup of coffee, all of those sorts of things. So, welcome, Deb. Would you like to start off and talk about what your background is, and we'll go from there?
Sure. So I've been working in HR for many years, and as Howard said, I've worked for a lot of those years for international companies. I've also worked a lot locally here in Newcastle over the years as well, and so have had the opportunity. I think for me, where it's been a lot easier is the majority of my career has been with technology organisations. So that's, I think, the key thing, which is I know has been a bit testing for this enforced work from home scenario, is that you actually have the technology solutions to be able to feel like you're working at the same pace that you can do at the office. And so traditionally I've worked for regional roles, so that means I've had responsibilities outside Australia, so it didn't really matter where I was sitting, where I was supporting team members as well as working as an active member of the global HR leadership team. So you're right. I think the thing is people look at it from different perspectives, and it is a different perspective if you go into it that it's a forced requirement. Personally, I find that a little hard to understand, but I'll talk through some of the pitfalls of that, because to me, it's been the most liberating way to work for me. I actually have a preference to work remotely, and it has been somewhat difficult for companies, particularly in Australia, to take it on board. But I think we will see a lot of changes in work over the period of time once this scenario of people being in lockdown goes away, because a lot more companies will actually see you can equally have team members that work just as hard at home as they do in the office. And the thing you've got to work around, as you said, is some people have issues around the social isolation. So I'll talk about that as well. I'm like you, I'm quite comfortable working on my own, but you do actually have to set up the right environment, and I think that that's important. It is also a little bit difficult at the moment under the circumstances that people are having to work from home. So some of the things that I would sort of talk about first up is the structure around working from home. Now, again, it depends on who the individuals are, and over the years there's been lots of different studies done by large organisations where some people prefer, for example, to still get dressed in work attire to go there. Not me. I'm no shoes, a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. So, and I've done many conference calls in that same attire that I like to wear. So I think it really, that does come down to the individual as to how they feel the most comfortable. And it comes back to a lot of it is routine, and a lot of people are comfortable in that work routine, going to an office, etc.
That is one of the things I always recommend, Deb, to people when they're doing a phone interview. Go through the process of getting ready for an interview as you would normally, and get dressed up. Then when you take the call, if it's a phone call instead of a video conference, stand up. It changes the timbre of your voice.
Yes, exactly. And similarly, some people use the commute to work to check voicemails, not emails, because obviously if you're driving, etc. But there's no reason that if you want to keep your routine going, and instead of, if you're not someone that may have already been to the gym or exercise or whatever, go for a walk around the block. And then when you walk in the door, then you're walking back into what is your workspace. The other routine that I would recommend is that you do identify things such as quite often, if I know it's going to be a really crazy day, I will actually make my lunch and everything before. Because I know if there have been many times in the early days where I just found I didn't even eat. So I was, I get quite hangry, let's just say. So, so for me, it's actually making sure I've got food prepared that I can go and grab a snack, or I can go and grab my lunch out of the fridge and it's there all ready to go. Now, some people don't need that structure. It's again, working out whatever your role is, what works best for you. Because if you're trying to create that work environment, these things are important. The other thing around environment is difficult at the moment for people that may be having to sit at the kitchen bench, the dining room table, etc. So I think the challenge there will be is how do you actually separate that? And it may be sitting down with their family, etc., and saying, I've got blocks of time that I really want to be able to have uninterrupted work. And there are other times where it doesn't matter if the kids are running around or whatever the case may be. I've seen already lots of animals are loving that their people are home through the day, and I think they're wondering what's going on because there's lots of dogs in pictures and that, and they can be quite fun and they can be unpredictable as well, and relax about it. I've had many conference calls where someone's kids actually forgot that mum or dad was on a call and they walked through behind them. And so we'll usually call them back and say hello so that the kids realise that it's just part of a normal existence.
Yeah, very good.
One of the big things for me, though, is I have been somebody that I always make sure that I don't have background noise. So some people like the radio on, some people like the TV on. I actually don't. That's not how I work in an office. So I have no background noise, even if I'm working here all day from that point of view.
Just going back to one point that you just mentioned.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hello.
This is Billy the office dog.
Hello, Billy. Hello, Billy.
Look that way. There, you can see Deb now.
It's true. It's just, it's important because this is part of people's lives. And so the dogs are actually getting quite a bit more attention, to be honest, because they're seeing their family more.
Well, we find it's quite a really good thing in the office because if I'm not here, Billy will just go and help himself to whoever's in the office's lap.
Yeah.
So he's just part of the furniture, and anyone who walks through the front door, he always makes one quick bark, and it makes people jump and then wonder what's going on. But it changes the entire dynamic of the office.
Yes. And many large technology organisations in the US have done it, where they've gone very much relaxed working framework. It's about getting the most out of the people loving what they're doing. So it's not that master-slave relationship, if you know what I mean. And so they're encouraging people to bring their pets with them.
Do you think with the working at home, and I don't want to get you off topic, but it was something that was a burning question, do you think that most employers have a perception leads reality about people working from home, and they have a, even if they can't articulate it, a fundamental mistrust? If they can see them, people are working, irrespective of whether they're only on Facebook, and if they're at home, they're not going to work.
100%. That's the biggest stopping block to it. And unfortunately, I have to say, in my own space of my profession, some of that sits a lot with HR. is because HR is not supportive, because as individuals, they're not got their heads around it. And so I feel in many organisations, it's HR that holds it back, not the company.
Okay.
So, yeah, which is being frank and honest, and something I've found very frustrating with my profession, knowing that I've been able to successfully do it for a long time, and proves you that you don't need to be. It's interesting. I remember many years ago when it started to take off, I worked for a massive US organisation at that point, and I was still living in Sydney at that point before I moved back home. And a lot of people had sort of, because technology, again, we had already had laptops were there now, and you had all the remote access to the networks, etc. Didn't have the cyber security issues we have now, so it was a lot easier to do. But that organisation, as a global organisation, was so dead against it. And it was interesting, that thing that turned the tide on them was the cost of real estate. Now, when you join that organisation, even at their headquarters, their Australian headquarters in Sydney, that has a couple of thousand employees just in Australia, you don't get offered an office. The assumption is that you will, if you come to the office, you will take up a hot desk because your primary location of work will be your home office.
Right.
Because
okay.
they've provided the technology. This kind of discussion, I mentioned to you when we had a chat earlier that, you know, I used Zoom when I was just studying again last year in my health and wellness coaching, doing my accreditation in that. We did lectures with our facilitator through Zoom. So, you know, you still got that face-to-face contact, if you know what I mean. So yes, and I think that distrust goes down to, well, how do I know that, as you say, that then they're not down at the grocery store doing their shopping, etc. Well, again, it comes back to fundamental culture in your organisation. Is your organisation built around trust, and do you value the contribution of your employees, or is it purely about measuring output? Yes. Remembering at that point in time, and for now, to be honest, people working from home doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get any company support from the payment of their electricity bill, all of those kinds of things. I know you can put it through your tax, but it's still very minor, the amount that you can claim back from that point of view. So again, it has to change I think it's really back to changing culture to see the results of what the team achieved, no matter where they are. And that will come down to absolutely individual leaders. And they have to be leaders versus managers. You know, I've been fortunate for a long time to work for the global heads of HR who trust that we will actually deliver, and the result, once those results are there, well, I couldn't even tell you I've ever been asked to justify the time I've spent working from home.
I think the difference there between a manager and a leader is really important. That fundamental culture in an organisation. I mean, I still going into many industries where I'm going to do business with people. Quite often, you'll find that the culture is based on blame, rather than anything else. Even though there might be a veneer of this is a great place to work, the finger pointing is just so apparent from, you know, almost immediately, and it's management, not leadership.
Yeah, and I think a standout company for me, and I'm not affiliated with them or connected to them, but I think that for me in the IT industry at the moment, there's an Australian organisation which is extremely successful now called Atlassian, and they have some fantastic HR initiatives, strategies, etc.
Can you say that name again, please, Deb?
Atlassian.
Atlassian.
Yes,
okay,
and
that's
you
one
can
I've not
follow
heard of.
them on LinkedIn, and they even information share about what they're doing internally. They're not holding it back and saying, well, this is my competitive knowledge, you know, I don't want it to get out there. they're actually taking a good stance on this and saying, this is what we're doing, and other people look at it and go, wow, that's fantastic. I've got people that I know, people that work there through other colleagues, and just the environment that they provide. Again, there's no expectation for people to be in the office, but when they're in the office, they provide an incredible workspace for people.
Okay.
And I think that's helped not only people develop incredible careers, it's the same, it's why the organisation becomes successful, because the thing around work-life balance isn't a reality. It's about it. It's being connected. You know, they always say if you do what you love, it doesn't feel like work. And so, you know, it's that they know how to separate, but because they know what's personal part of it and what's the professional part of it. Canva, CANVA, is another young Australian organisation that's becoming very successful. And that's been built up from the same kind of perspective as that as well. That's a technology organisation as well. So it makes it very difficult if you have somebody that's focused on measuring every piece of productivity that comes out. I mean, it comes back to setting goals. You know, I'm used to having quarterly goals. So at the end of the quarter, I had, you know, we had global goals. Then they filter down to my regional responsibility, as well as some the global responsibilities I had. And then my team, their goals, they filter through there. So all collectively, we're working towards the same thing. And that's what's important at the end of the day. And making your team feel like that you do actually appreciate that. And I would say that some notes I took about this is one of the important things for people that are not quite comfortable with it or working through it. They must create mechanisms, even if they do it themselves, to provide feedback about what's not working for them in that working from home scenario. Okay. Because it could be something, as you said, for example, isolation. You could jump on a call like we're doing now with your colleagues just to check in. There's it's happening a lot with large organisations I'm seeing on LinkedIn now. They're doing happy hour online. So people from around the world, wherever they are, if it's England, they might be having a cup of tea while someone here's having a glass of wine. But it's just that 5-minute check-in to say, hey, how's everybody doing through this?
And just to go back to the basis of what we're doing here, this was our idea in terms of a positive response to the coronavirus is a coffee chat around you know, perhaps a relevant issue and a space where people can just drop in. And one of our clients and an ex-tenant of the 452nd Business Centre here where I am.
Yes.
She called in yesterday and said, work wants me to set up a LinkedIn page. I don't know what to do. Can you help me? So after we're finished here, I'm going to chat with her about the pros and cons of how to set up your LinkedIn page. Yes.
And even you can take that a little step further. If people are from slightly larger organisations, you can actually have those kinds of groups on you can do it through Zoom. Yammer is another one. I've used a lot of the online things. In our organisation, we always had Yammer groups. So it's special interest, and it wasn't all business related. It was other personal interest things. So people globally could just check in there as well. And so it's because in the situation we're in now, where it's a little bit of a different scenario, because we don't know what we're managing. So it's kind of got to be business as usual until we know anything further. And so that personal support, to make sure people from a mental health perspective are still feeling connected is really important.
Are you okay is the bottom line, the starting point.
And it's okay to do that, because I'm sure a lot of people will feel I need to be stoic through this. Yeah. But this is scary stuff. We know we'll come out of it, but we've kind of still got to get through it, if you know what I mean. So the more we can do from a community, whether it's online, I had a great text from my neighbour 2 doors down who's got 2 daughters that are paramedics, but she's checking, am I okay? You know, I'm thinking about her. You know, I've got my nieces in the healthcare industry and I'm thinking about them, but here's my neighbour that has health issues herself, making sure I'm okay. And so I think that's really important for us, more than ever, that the mental health component of everybody getting through this is addressed, because some people may not want to talk about that with their family either.
Yeah, I work a lot with the mining industry, secondary tiers of the mining industry, and I have to just occasionally do that, because the current motto is quit your whining, keep mining.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good one. Yeah, but that's it, and it's kind of, we can joke about it, but some people feel pressured into that, don't they?
Absolutely, yes.
You know, and the roles different people have in society, they feel, you know. I came to the defence of Alan Joyce today in a post. I know the guy earns a lot of money, but I put my life in flying with Qantas for many years now, and I have no issue what he's paid. It's none of my business. He was appointed to the role, but now people are blaming him because the Qantas flights have stopped, and some of the vitriolic things you see are thinking, wow. You have no clue that the impact that could have on him as an individual. He's already just stood down 20,000 employees.
Look, and that has an impact on everyone. Like, one of the HR people that I'm in regular contact with literally laid off 700 people from her home office yesterday. People all around Australia that had to be laid off, or that company has no chance of surviving.
Yes.
Whatsoever, and they cannot operate. They're in an industry where they cannot operate from 12 midday yesterday.
Yeah.
And yeah, so those things are important. Deb, I'm just conscious that this conversation is flowing very easily about lots of good points. I was aiming that maybe we finish up about 10:30, and then it would be great to have this conversation extended on another day.
Happy to do that. But I think just if we stick it to the whole thing around mental health, you know, I think if we can look at it from a day-to-day perspective, again, with people that are not comfortable from working from home and feel that isolation, do something positive for you and do something positive for someone else. Yes. And that is, like I said, my neighbour who's got people that are involved in the front line sends me a text to make sure I'm okay. And I think that's, you know, that's probably the thing, and ask for help. You know, I think it's great, Howard, that you're doing this in terms of being able to set up just a chat environment for people to come in and talk about things, and even have it as an open plenary session where people can ask questions. And if we can help, happy to do so. And if people need other assistance, that can happen as well.
Deb, I've just noticed that a good friend of mine from Sydney, who's only just started working from home and is currently struggling with his camera.
Oh yes, I can see it now.
is trying to join the conversation. Can you hear us, Alan? Alan, can you hear us? I'll just see whether... Okay, can you hear us, Alan? No,
yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Oh, there we go.
Hi, Alan. How are you going?
Hello. Nice to meet you.
You too.
Yeah.
We've just been talking about the concept of just checking in with people and are you okay, and the concepts of working around the office from home. Have you ever worked from home before?
Yes, I have, but not like in this frequency. And it's, I think it does have its pitfalls. My experience, anyway. That's when you start to miss people around you, if that makes sense.
Yes,
very much.
Yeah.
I can't stand my colleagues, but now after about a week in, it's
yeah. And that's what we're just saying. It's even from that socialisation point, Alan. It's, you can set up these kinds of things, the Zoom calls. I was saying just before you came online, there are a lot of organisations that are actually doing things like a happy hour online, where people, no matter what part of the world they're in, or they're sitting with like a cup of tea, a glass of wine or whatever, just to check in what people are doing. I saw a lot for St. Patrick's Day, actually, people from different parts of the world. And it's just to keep that connectedness there. From a social perspective, not necessarily that people are being checked up on in terms of the professional side, but it still gives you an opportunity to do that if you need to do that, if you need to rely on others for contribution to your role.
No, definitely. I think, yeah, it's beneficial. So you don't sort of feel so isolated.
Correct.
And with all the reports and everything going on about the virus and stuff like that, yeah. It's a lot of
because it's becoming all consuming, and so it's being able to have access to, and that's where we were talking about why the mental health component is so critical, because people, if we go into full lockdown, which it doesn't, you know, who knows what will happen. The UK have just forced that overnight, I've just seen this morning. So that creates a different mental space for people as well. So it's a bit of a trapped feeling. So it's how can you put things in place. And I was talking about making sure you have a routine is really important, so that there's some normality to your working day. Yeah,
I just hope that, you know, everyone stays safe and follow instructions. There's a lot of stuff going on social media, which is extremely confusing and misleading to everyone.
Yes, I think that's it.
Yeah, so no, it's good. It's actually, I think we do. I think mental health will be a big issue. There's a lot of my friends, they work in RSL clubs where the whole family just lost their job on Monday. So
yes. Well, I just contacted a friend locally here, obviously Howard from Wests, just to check in with them, because they'll be right in the thick of, you know, I don't think Wests would have ever closed its doors in its history until yesterday. So multiple premises, etc. So it is, and you know, with everybody, as you say, and then they show the pictures of Centrelink this morning. It's distressing for everybody. That uncertainty.
I guess if we just can we summarise? Have a routine.
Have a routine and structure around what you do. Do what works for you in terms of, as we said, how you present yourself to your own office. As we said, you and I are happy in a pair of shorts and a t-shirt. Some people might prefer to be in work dress. You know, it's all of those. But the other thing I think is also, Howard, one of the key things I think for people that are not used to working remotely is to have that mechanism to give feedback to what is not working and how they think things could work better.
Yeah.
Could be that the team have a Zoom call rather than just stumbling along and thinking I'm just not getting anything out of it. So that starts to create stress for the individual as well, and we don't want people feeling stressed at all through what is a difficult period at this point.
That sounds a really good place to finish up. Now, you and I aren't going to finish the conversation, but I'm just going to hit the stop video button and stop that recording. So this has been very valuable. It sounds like it could be something that we might do another day if you have the time. And
happy to
much
do
appreciate it.
No, happy to do what I can to help.
Terrific. Thanks, Deb.